Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to our panel today.
Yay.
Yay!
Woo!
Yay!
That's the part where you cheer. Thank you.
And welcome to PAX East.
Sorry, it
That
echoes.
was such an echo.
Like,
Sound people love us already.
My name is Chris Perkins. I am a dungeon master, as some of you know, and I am up here with 4 other beautiful people, which will start to my left.
oh, am I introducing myself?
Yes,
My
please.
name is Mika. Hi. I play. Do I say who I play? We didn't run through
I
this.
think we'll just do our introductions first.
Oh, hi. I'm Mika.
What do you do?
Oh, I'm a cosplayer and I play Dungeons and Dragons and I host esports sometimes.
Nice.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like Mika and the stuff she does.
Thank you. Oh my goodness, this is just so much self-esteem boosting today.
Hi, I'm Nate. I do a lot of stuff.
And he's a
Yeah, he does. He does. He does.
He does. He does.
That was cheap.
I do all the stuffs. Do you know that? No.
and he's a fish.
Yes.
We only learned this today that Nate's actually a fish.
We are now spouting inside jokes that nobody has any insight into, and things are starting off great.
Isn't that fun to listen to? Isn't it great?
I am Anna Prosser. I work for Twitch and also do a lot of stuff in esports as well as in Dungeons and Dragons. Hello, welcome.
I'm going to try. Hi, my name is Jonathan Indovino. I also go by Shady Penguin. I'm a content creator online. I do games and yell at screens all day. It's real fun. Yeah! She taught me that. She taught me that. It works. It's good.
It took us 4 goes, but we finally got it, you guys.
It's good. It's good.
It is worth saying the whole fish thing came from, none of us know much about astrology. But this morning we realized we have 2 Cancers, 2 Pisces, and an Aquarius. So together we make the sea.
We're just an ocean.
Yeah.
Yes. That nobody cares, but I just
Literally
thought you should.
no one batted an eye.
Everyone's like, yeah, okay, cool, anyway.
Cool. Can Chris
D&D.
talk now?
I just feel bad for leaving people out.
No.
Like, now I know, and it's not that interesting. All right.
Some people like astrology. No one said
Go,
it.
Chris.
All right, wow, all right.
no
Chris,
one does.
save us. Chris, save us.
Turns out, no.
No one likes astrology. I'll just leave.
Anyway, so 2 weeks ago at PAX Unplugged, that was 2
Was that
weeks
2
ago,
weeks
right?
ago?
No.
It felt like 2
But
weeks
it felt
ago.
like 2 weeks.
Yeah. We first started to talk about this show. We're going to talk a little bit more about it today because this weekend is special. This will be the first time that anybody outside of us gets to watch us play.
Yay!
Yay.
So this is kind of a new approach for us, a new kind of way of rolling out the program, as it were. And we're still experimenting, we're still playing, we're still trying things out. Tomorrow is going to be a bit of an exploration for us, sort of finding our tone, finding our voice, discovering the characters, and sort of getting a sense of what kind of terror and horror I have in store for you guys.
We know it's going to be terror and horror, but what kind?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to be the usual broad comedy fare that I'm known for at PAX
Yeah.
shows, but
None of that lighthearted merriment that you're usually giving us.
no. You guys will have to bring the humor.
Challenge accepted. All right.
So,
Bless you.
thank you.
You're so kind, Nate. You're such a fish. A fish would say bless you there. You're so fish-like.
So just talking a little bit about the goals of the show, and sorry if you were part of the PAX Unplugged rollout, you may know some of this information, but it's the way I like to frame it as is, here is a way that you can play D&D. It's not the way to play D&D. Even though I work at Wizards of the Coast and I work on Dungeons & Dragons products, sometimes people watch me and think, oh, that's how it should be done. Well, it turns out no. All DMs create their own campaigns. They bring in their own sensibilities. They customize their adventures for their players, and I have done the same thing. My D&D game that you'll see tomorrow is just that. I'm not making any bold statements about what it's like to play D&D. If you've watched my Acquisitions Inc. games, you know that's not how to play D&D. But this will be something different, and I'm looking forward to it for that reason.
So are we say nervously, right? That's what we respond?
Yes.
We're looking forward to it. Scared.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it.
I'm going on, like, what is this, year 4 of the terror of Chris Perkins, and now I've come to cherish it.
Very good.
The first time I ever played with Chris Perkins, he gave us double disadvantage, so I'm terrified.
Now, I'm glad you brought that up because
God.
even though this game that we're doing tomorrow is going to be rooted in D&D, I'm not going to be breaking any rules.
So what you're saying is you've officially implemented double disadvantage into the rules.
No.
This is how you're going to roll it out, and we're like, surprise!
No, I will run a legit game using the legit rules.
What about the permit crab?
The permit crab.
That only counts if you bring the permit crab.
We
We're
all
bringing
have.
our
There will be
crab.
4.
The story behind this is if you were at the Unplugged panel, I like to include people. If you were at the Unplugged panel, you remember that we were coming up with all of the things T.O.R.C.H might stand for. One of them was the only red crab here. And
We
that
really
evolved.
latched onto that for some
Yes.
odd reason.
I don't know. And that evolved into kind of the mascot of our campaign, becoming a crab. And you may have seen the permit crab meme, and we thought, what a great way to save us from at least some small measure of misery. Let's convince Chris that if we use our permit crab, we can do something like a re-roll. We don't know exactly what it's going to be, but he said he would allow permit crabs to save us in the game.
And we all have crab plushies, so we can hold up our permit crab to
That's
permit
the
us
key.
to do one. Yeah, if we don't have the permit crab, we're not allowed to
Right.
use it.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
you
none
can't
during this panel.
You can't just call permit crab and not display the crab.
Yeah. And
Chris
it's
wants to see the
one
plushie.
crab can be used per session.
Do I get to confiscate the crab at that point?
I don't want to lose my crab.
Well,
No.
then use it wisely. I'm
Chris,
kidding. I would never,
is it
I would
one
never
crab?
take your crab.
Is it one crab total per session or one crab per player per session?
I think it's one per session because
Okay, so we have to negotiate between us.
It's
Yeah.
going to
our
be a
game
crab
is
battle.
only an hour and a half long. If we
Yeah.
all get a permit crab,
Yeah,
nobody's ever going to fail a roll.
okay.
I feel like it's going to end up like those very valuable things you have in video games where you're at the final boss and you're like, I don't know, man, I may need it
I may
later.
need
I'm
it
not
later."
going to use
Yep.
it.
And I'm not convinced that the mechanics are quite sound yet. We may have to play with that a little bit.
Yeah,
Like
we're
maybe
experimenting.
reroll might be too good. Maybe advantage is slightly better. I don't know.
Okay,
Up to the DM's just
Maybe it's something completely different. Maybe it's like add 10 to your roll.
yeah,
Ooh.
that sounds good.
That sounds cool.
The permit crab carries a little D10, having rolled a 10.
Oh,
That's
Yeah.
so cute.
Comes-
I know this is a really dumb idea, but we're going to go with it and see what it's see how it works. Maybe it'll take off. Kids will love it.
Marketing, that's all that matters.
So let's talk briefly. We're going to meet your characters in the flesh, as it were, tomorrow, and we're going to see them arguing with each other. But for now, let's look at the static ideals of these characters and just talk about them as people. What are they to you, these characters, and where do you want them to go on their great journeys? So starting with the introduction of your character, Mika.
Oh, God, this is what happens when I sit next to the DM. I am playing a tiefling death cleric, and her name is Setsuna. She is not very happy with the god that she is patron to, but there's a bit of a complicated relationship there. There's kind of a weird, almost romantic thing happening as well with it. So it's kind of warlock-y, but not quite. And I was really excited to pick a cleric because I've never played a cleric before, and I've also always wanted to kind of delve into necromancy, so a death cleric is the best of both worlds. And she's a kind of quiet, doesn't really trust much. I don't want to give too much away, but yeah.
Her goal is to turn all of her friends into zombie meat.
No, she doesn't. So she uses necromancy, but she's not happy with having necromancy. It's not like I love zombies. It's kind of like this is the power that I'm settled with, so I got to make the best of a bad situation. But yeah, I'm very excited to see where she goes and where her individual story goes. I know this is not physically possible because Chris Perkins is the DM, but I would like her to be happy. I I would like Setsuna to find happiness and be
I'll
able
be
to.
happy for you. Is that good enough?
Thank you. I want her to be able to trust people since she's never trusted people. She's always lived life on her own. I'd like her to like maybe be in a healthy relationship with her patron and her friends, but I know literally none of that is gonna happen. So I'll just like make a dream journal and like wish and pretend and make like an AU one shot where it's like a coffee shop AU and she's happy.
But you chose to be a death cleric.
But it's not.
You could have been a lollipop cleric or a.
And if I made a lollipop cleric, you'd have every like lollipop poison someone. I don't trust you, Chris.
Okay.
My character, Rainer, who is a human fighter, is very much good for the sake of good, just doing what he can to serve up justice and what he sees as the ideals of right from wrong, good from evil. And he's more or less like the assembler of Torch, just trying to put this team of good doers together, more or less, without giving too much away, as like an honor to an old friend who kind of instilled these ideals into him and was a inspiration to him. Yeah, he's
We'll
just
meet that old friend tomorrow, by the way.
Yeah, I was gonna say, should
Spoiler.
we say anything about that?
Oh no.
Also, did we say what Torch actually stands for? No?
Do any of you actually remember what Torch stands for?
We
'Cause I
make a
don't.
point
Yeah, I
not
do.
to remember. It's only him who's allowed to remember.
It's the Order of Ready and Courageous Helpers, but no one seems to
The
want
That was such a weird-
orangutan ripping.
Not heroes, helpers.
because they're here to help, and calling yourself a hero is a little self-righteous. And, you know, it's not about ego. It's about doing the good for the sake of the good.
The orange rectangle challenges him.
Tangoing ostriches really can hoe down.
This orange rectangle just... It is time.
I'm playing a half-elf bard named Delvany Pine, and she, I would say, is probably the youngest of the group and has very little in the way of life experience, but she hates that and has made up for it by being a huge bookworm in search of stories and adventure. She also comes from a family that has an interesting adventuring past, so she really wants to do her storied family right, but she hasn't had much opportunity to even get out and see the world. So the line between her make-believe world and the actual world has become a little bit blurred because of how much time she spends alone. So she's a very capricious and aware and friendly person, but maybe a little bit overzealous sometimes, I would say, and a little bit naive. So I think in terms of where I want her to go, I think that the interesting thing to explore with her is when somebody is lonely for a long time and they kind of make their own place, a lot of like we do in D&D, how do they use what they have built to connect with other people again and find family or find friends or find real adventure, and where does that line fall? And then also I think being the youngest and some of the connections that she has with some of the other characters, I think there'll probably be a point where she stands up and says, look, you can't treat me like a child anymore because I have a lot to offer as well. And so she's kind of been in the role of having been given permission always to do things. And I think the moment when she finally says, I make my own rules, I give my own permission, is gonna be a huge turning point for her whenever that does happen.
Cool. So my character is Valence Knight, and Vale is a tiefling sorcerer that uses wild magic. And initially, his origin story, the short of it is that he had blinded his mother when his magic kind of first sprung about, and he was pretty much outcast from his people. And I had originally planned for him to like live alone, but he kind of lived alone. He has a ghost friend, which was Chris's idea, and I loved it. And it really immediately changed the dynamic of what I thought Vale was going to be, because for me, he was like a little bit representative of a time in my life where I was a loner and I felt very alone. My family, there was just some disconnect. And having a ghost friend made me much happier than I thought it would. Like, the character just became this really almost, way more accepting of other people as far as like not as distrustful because this dead guy was cool with me.
Yay,
and that was
my
like,
only friend is dead.
yeah, and it was maybe one day I'll get friends that are not so dead. It was a great prospect.
Maybe.
It was really cool. What I originally hoped for the character has changed drastically since that, and now I kind of just want to see Vale grow into having some good friends, which like I think is a really relatable kind of life goal for, well, at least for me. I like good friends. I don't know. So I think that's really his like ambition is to master his magic so he doesn't blind anyone he loves anymore, and then to go ahead and make some good friends.
This is a perfect segue for the next thing I was going to mention, which is some weeks ago, we just got together at the Wizards offices and shot a session 0, and we taped it, and we're planning to kind of dice it up and roll it out so that you can see some things that happened when we were sitting down, just to make sure, you know, we're all cool, we're all having a good time, this is a good chemistry, we got all this working for us. It turned out it was a spectacularly fun session.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say it was awful. We all hated each other. Everything went wrong. I was like, oh, great.
There were a
That
surprising
could have
amount of
been,
crabs
that
in
could
it
have been a
too.
conclusion.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, but it didn't work out that way. It turns out we had a ball, and the adventure I took him on is essentially a precursor to what we're going to see tomorrow. But you don't have to have watched it to enjoy tomorrow's show. It's kind of like its own isolated bit of character origin story. But I'm curious to know, from that experience, what's like one thing that you either learned about your character that you didn't know going into that session 0, or has just sort of stuck with you and you hope to explore maybe in the future? And we'll start on the back end.
So I think I kind of just bled into that, but I really didn't expect Vale to be so excited to meet people, like to actually adventure with other people, and specifically your character, Delvany. When I first got to meet her, Vale was thrilled because she's like this super happy, bubbly, ready to tell stories, and like you said, you don't know where the lines are, and Vale's just like, ooh, that's different from my dead friend. I like that. So that's something that's really sticking with me. Like, I'm really excited to see how our characters specifically get to interact, and everyone, but we're like two sides of a different coin. I like that. It's really cool.
I think I was surprised to find that Delvany is almost certainly going to be the primary comic relief with all of these characters, which it wasn't like I was thinking she would be a very serious character, but she's definitely the one that when the mood gets dark, she's kind of like, okay, we're fine, you know, lightens up the mood or does ridiculous things that kind of ease tension, which above game for me as a player is really exciting because I think I've rarely been like the comic character, but I really enjoy it, and it's something I've been wanting to do more as a player. So, and it's also a really fun shift for us as players together because having been Paulton the Bard and Evelyn the Paladin, now being the Bard who doesn't break the fourth wall, but certainly foibles a lot, and having the super serious Rainer is really fun too.
Right. Yeah, I think for me, a big a difference that stuck with me is, you know, Rainer's like very much military background. He's like by the books, and he's got this rule set and mindset. But he was a lot less like strict and pushy than I thought he would be in session, because I thought he was going to be a little more, you know, like army, you know, like just barking orders and things like that. But there was one point in session 0 where, you know, I won't give too much away because that'll probably be released at some point. Some stuff happened to Vale, John's character, and he helped him out. And he was out recruiting for Torch. He's like, "Hey, you should join this." And at first, you weren't interested. He's like, "No, I'm not going to do that." And he's just like, "Okay, you do you. Have a good day." And it was just like carrying.
That
on.
really threw me off.
Yeah.
I really thought you were going to push, and you didn't. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me of one more thing. Do you mind if I go back?
No, go for it.
Chris always adds interesting things to our backstory, and I think I learned a lot about why Delvany cares so much about finding stories and being an adventurer because of what Chris added to my backstory. And I think there's also a new element of her like trying to make someone proud that I didn't think about.
That literally, when you said that, sorry, that broke my heart. Oh my gosh. When you guys see
Oh,
session
yeah,
0,
that-
there's this one specific scene that she speaks and you cry. You just immediately, you feel.
All of us got real
But it's
sad.
it's a good sad.
Yeah.
It's like a wholesome.
It was
I think
like
I was
Loved it.
smiling, though.
yeah, you were smiling because you're like, oh, good storyteller. It was like a sympathetic sad. We were all like, oh, womp womp, sad
It's
trumpet.
like, I'm rooting for you now.
Exactly. I think I discovered that Setsuna is more scared than she is like isolated. I kind of always pictured her as like a typical like My Chemical Romance emo type of like tiefling, but it seems like she's more like she really, really wants to trust people because she's been so betrayed in her past, she can't. So it's kind of this inner turmoil that she has of like, there are these new people that she's meeting, and she really wants to trust them, but like trusting has never gotten her anywhere. It's actually hurt her in the past. So she's more of like a sad hurt but wants to be fixed type of person. And also another thing that Chris added to my backstory, we changed the god that Setsuna is a cleric to like hours before the session. And I kind of learned about the relationship as you were speaking. So I thought it was gonna be kind of more of a indentured servitude type, but it's, like I said before, it has this weird, almost romantic partnership.
It creeps me the heck out.
It's a little bit creepy. So this has given me a lot more to think about of where Setsuna's mindset is when it comes.
Set up a really interesting power dynamic.
Yeah,
it's a shifting one.
It's a really shifting power dynamic, especially because he needs something from her and she needs something from him. So it's a little dicey, but it's going to be really fun to explore where this goes, especially as like she gains more power. So she's just a little baby level 1 right now.
Yeah.
She's not doing. She can inflict wounds though, which is rad.
And I learned that I'm starting to get too old to run like 4 or 5 hour sessions.
It was long.
It was a long session.
Mind you, we were in this fairly small, not very well ventilated studio, so that may have contributed to
It
it.
was sweaty in there.
Yeah. But tomorrow's game is an hour and a half, and this, that's sort of what I like in a more episodic style play. One of the things I like about the 1.5 hour versions is that it does give you enough time to tell a more or less complete story and kind of bookend it without letting anything drag on. I think that'll be one of our challenges, though, is just to be able to compress as much cool stuff and character building into that small amount of time as possible. And character building is huge for me. One of the things as a DM that I've learned over the years is a lot of players, unconsciously or consciously, want to keep their characters in a static place because it's kind of safe and it lets you just sort of overthink it. You just sort of get into your character. It's the same as it was last week. It's the same as the one the week before, and you just sort of move along and you just sort of let the plot carry you along. But as the DM, as you know, Anna and Nate, I'm always pushing situations at the characters that force them to change so that they're not the same people that they were at the start of the campaign, often not by a long shot.
I think that's one of my favorite things about D&D and playing D&D with you is it reminds you that like the process of being human is never static either.
Yeah. And it also just keeps you on your toes. You don't know at the end of the session if what your character's perspective on something might be, because it might change. And I think we're just gonna go out the gate running with that idea. And the other thing that I want to play with this game that I haven't played with before in any streamed show or any other venue is the idea of having little brief momentary flashbacks to earlier points in your characters that can sort of frame what is going to happen to the characters in that session.
Cool.
Wow.
So there's not just like hour-long exposition.
No, yeah.
That's cool.
So we're kind of playing our characters as they are now and thinking about what they must have been like before.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's a lot to think about.
And the good thing about these little momentary flashbacks and sort of hopping back to the past, if and when I can do it, is you don't have to worry about your character dying. So it takes some of the pressure off.
Yeah.
So
Which is very pointed that we have to worry about them dying everywhere else, but in the
Right.
brief respite of flashbacks, we're fine.
eventually you'll
not
come to the
permanently.
point where you just want to live in the flashback forever. I won't let you.
We're just clinging to that grayscale. No, let us stay here, please.
Yeah.
Should we do questions?
It's up to Chris.
It's up to Chris.
Whenever Chris is ready.
Do any of you have any questions about me before I open up the floor to everybody else?
Ooh.
Anything you want to know?
I actually would love to hear you respond because there's kind of the meme and joke of like Chris Perkins, the emotional DM torturer,
Which is ironic because I am a robot. I don't actually have emotions myself.
But I'm curious, A, do you think that reputation is actually deserved or is it just a fun joke? And B, do you think that this campaign will be a lot of the same vein or do you think it will be different in any way from a lot of campaigns that people have publicly seen you do before?
What was the first one? No.
Do you think that
Oh, yeah.
the reputation is deserved?
I don't think so. I think that I meet a lot of DMs, at this show, at other shows. And when I hear them talk about their campaigns, they're doing the same kinds of things that I'm doing as a dungeon master. They're tormenting their players in their own way. And so I feel like I'm just one of the team.
Yeah.
So maybe it is accurate, but then I'm not alone.
Well, I mean, torment is conflict, right?
Yes, I think that if everybody is in agreement about the sort of the temperature of the conflict, the amount of conflict, it's not too much that people start to feel like, oh, I'd rather go back to my day job.
Yeah.
Then I think conflict is good because it makes your character think more. It makes your character having to deal with unusual situations in a safe, controlled environment. I think that's not only creatively empowering, but it can also be very therapeutic in a way.
And do you think this campaign is going to be a lot of the same, or do you think there's anything new that, at least thematically, people can expect from you?
I don't know, because I'm just kind of rolling with the punches. I have gotten out of the habit of trying to plot out an entire campaign right out the gate. Rather, I just as soon see it evolve. I'd like to see the choices that you guys make in one session carry over to the next, but I don't necessarily assume that that's the direction the campaign's going to go. I'd much rather just kind of feel my way along.
Cool.
That's a good question.
Anybody else have questions for Chris? This is a golden opportunity.
What was your favorite flavor of Pop-Tart again? I stumped him.
Cinnamon.
You couldn't even stump him.
Cinnamon.
Cinnamon?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chris.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Your choice is correct.
So, what's that?
That's important.
Oh. Frosted.
Correct.
Frosted.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
correct.
Look, but like unfrosted isn't as horrible as people want to think it is.
It's not
Yeah.
horrible, but if you had a choice.
Yeah, if you
That's
forced
pretty
me to be a
horrible. I'm gonna say it for you
non-frosted
guys out
one,
there. I
would
know
eat
it's-
it. I would eat it. How many of you, just out of curiosity, in the audience, are currently involved in a D&D game?
Wow.
I love that.
That's
Give yourself
amazing.
a hand. That's beautiful.
Leave your hand up if you're the DM. Look at all those DMs.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Be nice to your players, everyone.
Thank you.
No.
Overwhelming response.
You have learned well.
I mean, to be honest though, most players tend to torture themselves.
That's true.
Oh, you bring up a very good point. No, go on.
No,
I want to hear more.
that
was
oh,
it?
Oh, that was it.
Okay.
I mean, I can talk
It's
more
true,
if the
though.
DM wants that.
I'm fond of saying I do not torture players, they torture themselves.
Yeah.
I just allow it to happen.
That's fair.
That's fair.
Totally fair.
Also, it's
got it.
always fun to go out to like dinner with you and see you start taking notes while we're talking.
Yeah, everybody else
There's
is talking,
a
and I'm just
specific
like,
posture he does when he hears you say something. He'll go
And then we all get really, really quiet.
with one finger like this. Yep, every time.
And then we're like, what did we say?
I'm a one-finger typer on my phone. I'm a two-finger typer on my keyboard. I'm so embarrassed by that.
It happened today when we were talking about animated burgers.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
We were like, shut up. He might turn that into a monster and kill us all.
Because like I got a burger and they did the thing where they stick a knife in it and it looks like they just, killed a burger by stabbing it in the head. And then Chris just goes,
You did.
he goes, It's like, no.
That's not what we meant.
I was just going,
Should we let them ask questions now?
I think, yeah, we're at the halfway point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are two microphones. There's one in that aisle and there's one in this aisle. If anybody is interested in asking one or more of us questions, you may line up and we will switch back and forth if there are people in both places. Currently, there's nobody manning that microphone over there. So we will start with this gentleman.
So, hi guys, my name's Brandon. 3/4 Dungeon Master, 1/4 player.
Nice.
Nice.
Love all you guys.
Good combo.
And so, Chris, I have to ask, what rarity is that sweater, and where did you get it?
This is a unique artifact.
Okay.
This sweater was made for me by my cousin Monica to keep me warm in Boston
That's lovely.
and other cold places. Yeah, so it's unique, sorry.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You can only get it if you best Chris Perkins in a game of chance.
Yeah, or, yeah.
So my question is your ghost friend real?
Oh, is it just a figment of
Totally
your
just in your head.
imagination?
He needs to be real. Because if he's not, Vale is in big trouble. Yeah. Yeah. He's real, right, Chris? Chris! You guys, stop! No! In session 0, Chris, am I allowed to, can I give a tiny spoiler about the very first thing that happens to my character? The very first thing that I
Go
found
ahead,
out.
yeah.
The very first thing Chris says introducing my character is, oh, by the way, you fell off your bed 2 days ago and your arm's broken. So, like, I don't want my ghost friend to be fake, too. I would really just like something good for Vale. But he also has wild magic, and that's my fault, so.
Yeah, I sort of decided without consulting you that because you're dabbling in wild magic, that bad things just kind of happen to you. But good things can happen to you, too.
How often and when can I expect those good things?
All the time.
Oh.
Are they good things for him or for you?
Good question.
All right. This question is primarily directed to Chris, but any of you can, chime in. As a GM, I always try to solicit feedback from my players, what I did well at this session, what I could have done better. So, Chris, what pieces of feedback have made you really go, oh shit, that's a good piece of feedback? And if the players also got any feedback that really made them very much reconsider how they're playing or their character, feel free to chime in.
Please don't kill me.
Plenty of other characters where he came from.
Okay.
So that's an excellent question. As a DM, I like to listen and watch more than I like to talk. So I just watch their faces and what they're doing. If they're screaming, crawling under a table, banging their head against their desk, I'm doing everything right. If they're smiling, having fun, if they're engaged in active conversation with each other, they're trying to wrestle and wrangle a problem, and I'm just listening to them, I know I'm doing something right. If I'm not talking at all and the game is moving forward, I'm doing something right.
I'm trying to think of instances in the past where we've given or taken feedback. A lot of it has been mostly thematic, like, oh, this happened to my character, it made me think about this, here's an idea I have for their backstory, here you go. So I think that's less feedback and more like a collaborative above-game storytelling approach, which I think a lot of people feel like you shouldn't discuss the game outside the game, but I find it really fun.
I do too, and I've never been averse to sort of turning the game in a slightly different direction to accommodate some new discovery or a change. Like if one of you were to decide even something as extreme as I want to play a new character, that wouldn't affect the game. We would just figure out a way to make it happen. But as a DM, I think it's a really good sign of the health of the campaign if the players are as much in control or feel that they have as much control over the story as I do in a way. That you guys can, if you ever felt like it, propose, hey, I think this is sort of an unexplored aspect. It would be kind of cool if down the road we could explore that more. Or I can't wait to learn more about X. And that sort of lodges in my brain. And then I just file that away and say, oh, well, you will learn more about X in,
I think something that was really cool, not advice that I gave to a DM, it was more that Chris gave to us as players before the session 0, where we kind of had that code of conduct discussion. I think that was like, for me, compared to other D&D games I've played, was almost like life-changing, was game-changing, where it's, hey, give everyone a chance to shine, don't derail, like have the common respect between players to understand that we are trying to move the story forward, whether the DM is talking or not. That was really, as a player, it changed the dynamic for me of, this is the right way to, like, the right way in the sense, the right way to play is that everyone is having a good time, even when they're having a bad time.
Also, to kind of piggyback off of that, before the session, we had a boundaries discussion. And I think that I'm really excited to go into a game that I know could be Chris Perkins heavy TM, but knowing that everybody, all the players and the DM will know my boundaries of like role playing and where to stop that line and like where I'd like to explore further, even if it is kind of heavy. And I feel like that is such an amazing thing for a group and a DM to have that discussion. So nobody's like all of a sudden red flagging and we had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good question.
Far Mike?
Hi. I have 1.5 questions. First, will you guys be using like the adventure and setting books that are coming out of Wizards of the Coast, or is it going to be original content?
Good question.
There will be original content insofar as it's all improvised, but we are going to be, as you'll see in tomorrow's game, we're going to be leaning heavily on Wizards published content. But as is customary, I will be modifying it extensively. Part of the reason is I like to be able to show other DMs who might be watching that they're well within their rights to do that, that no text is so sacred that you can't modify it for your game. And part of it is I just want to make sure it's customized for this particular group and sort of plays to their strengths. And so that's, and also I don't want to spoil that content for anybody who might be trying to run it. Let's say you're a player and you're watching the show. You don't want the entire experience of the product just revealed in front of your eyes so that your DM then cannot go and run it for you.
Did we already said which product it was going to be, didn't we?
Yeah, tomorrow's game is going to draw material from the D&D Essentials Kit.
Yay.
Which is, for those who don't know, a D&D beginner box that released fairly recently. It's like the companion to our original starter set. Mm-hmm. And it features, the Essentials Kit takes place in the same starting town of Phandalin and has a bunch of short adventure experiences and satellite locations that people can explore. So that's where we're sort of basing things in tomorrow's session.
Point 5. I drew a picture of Spurt while we were waiting to come in. Do you want it?
Yes, please. Wait. Also, I will take that opportunity to say the whole cast. Thank you. I don't know what Chris has planned after the panel, but the rest of us four will be at the Cantrip booth in Bandland. So if there's anything you want to ask us or give to us or have us sign, we'll all be there to do that after the panel too.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So hey, I'm a DM who really would like to play at some point.
High-end problem.
So I really like, at least in my home games, I really like to like mess around with mechanics to a degree. And I was thinking about the crab mechanic that you were mentioning. And I was thinking maybe it'd be a cool idea to have it be like you add an additional D20 roll and then you subtract 10. So it's like more of a gamble.
Okay.
Is that an interesting idea? I'm not sure.
It is an interesting idea. You almost lost me at subtraction because most people can't do it. But actually, that's a really interesting idea. We might try that out. In fact, I think we might experiment with a number of different mechanics until we land on something.
Try it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Did you have a follow-up question, or?
Oh yeah, another follow-up question. So I noticed that the like when you started the first sort of like a D&D stream, you had it be like very because it was based on Curse of Strahd, it was very immediately like gothic horror. Mm-hmm. How is this one? If we're also having horror in this campaign, how is this going to be integrated, considering it's using the Essentials Kit this time?
That's a good question. It might be that if there's a horror part to it, it sort of creeps up on us later, not right away. Tomorrow's session, though, might have a different kind of horror. Gothic horror is one thing. It's very kind of bloody and romantic. But then you've also got things like, there's Lovecraftian horror, and then there's, a zillion kinds of horror.
There's horror everywhere.
There's the horror of war. Maybe that's going to be a thing.
That's what I assumed.
Yeah. So I think in order to make it feel different, I'm just going to. Well, for one thing, we've got a different group of characters this time around, and so I think organically it will just feel different than what we've seen before. we've got a trained soldier in the party. That sort of changes the chemistry of the entire party and even how they would react in a horror situation. Whereas I've had other parties that just sort of collapse into pools of jelly instantly.
Other parties.
I think this one has stronger bones. Yeah.
So what you're saying is Cthulhu. We're gonna fight.
No, not saying anything. I'm not making any presumptions.
The moment you said other types of horror, we all just simultaneously just kind of started to curl up.
We're like, no, please.
I did see you shrivel a little bit. So yeah, it will feel different. I don't tend to repeat myself very often, so
Except for when Strahd comes back every season.
that's just, a love letter to the fans.
Yeah.
It's your OC. Why wouldn't you bring him?
Yeah.
So my question, I guess, is mostly for Chris, but it couldn't be answered by any of you. So as far as tying into doing kind of episodic or shorter sessions, because I play an online game where everyone's in different time zones, so it can only be a certain amount of time. How do you go about encapsulating that without just cutting out either RP or cutting out other elements to try to save time?
That's a good question. There's a lot there. One of the things that I do technically is I think of myself not so much as a director, but an editor. I jump ahead. Also, if a conversation doesn't seem to be going anywhere, or a decision can't be made, or they're struggling, sometimes I'll just skip ahead 10 minutes in game and say, "You are now here," and everybody's like, "Oh, okay, great. We don't have to worry about that decision anymore." I also, in addition to jumping around, I don't necessarily I don't spend too much time dwelling on what's happening in the middle of the session. A lot of my brain space as a DM is taken up figuring out how to start and how to end. I'm thinking about the last 10 minutes of the game, 45 minutes before the game is over, trying to anticipate just a good way to end it. And sometimes it ends on a cliffhanger, and sometimes it ends with a nice little, we can breathe for one more week.
I think as a player, I always try and expedite my fighting, my combat. Like if I know that I'm on deck, I'll already think of what I want to do, because at least when I play, I feel like combat lags sometimes. So I never want to be that person. Thank you. I never want to be that person that's sitting there like, and it's like 10 minutes before I decide what I want to do. So while still listening to everything else that's going on, it's just so like I know who's still alive and what I still have to fight. I'm like looking through my spells, and like, especially as a spellcaster, sometimes it gets a little more complex. So I always want to make sure that once it is my turn, I know exactly what I'm going to do, so we can just get through combat, but also be effective at combat.
Agree.
All right.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Possibly silly question. I was trying to do fan art, and I realized I could be wrong, but I think the only image we've seen so far is in black and white.
Yes.
Perchance, have you thought of color schemes for hair, clothing,
Yes.
skin color?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we want to say anything now, or do we want to wait till tomorrow?
You know me, I always want to talk about my character. But I can wait. I can also wait.
You can give like one little color flourish tip, whatever.
Well, I'm probably going to wear a wig tomorrow for the game, and that will reveal Delvini's hair color. But I will say that her garments are super multicolored, and she has lots and lots of little baubles all over because she wants to look fancy and sparkly, and flowers and beads and florals and velvets and satins, that kind of stuff.
Veil, the colors I'll give away is that his outfit is mostly like a gray tunic almost, pretty like poor looking since he's been living with a ghost in a ruin. But he does have a cloak that is a mood cloak that changes colors with his mood, which was given to me by Chris Perkins himself.
Right.
So I value that.
Have you, Jonathan, taken the time to codify what colors go with what mood?
Mostly.
Okay.
We even had a couple of them show up. More often than not, when Vale's wearing it, it's like a soft, deep blue. If I can say soft, deep together. I don't know if that contradicts.
Sure.
It works a little bit.
It works.
It's like a deep blue. And then when he gets nervous or eyes are on him, it usually goes to like a bright pink. So those are the two colors. Yeah. Little guy, he's just a little shy.
His cape is blushing.
His cape, yeah, his cape literally is blushing.
Setsuna is wearing a black dirndl with a black apron and a white shirt underneath. It's like a lace shirt, and her hair is black.
Right out of a 50s movie.
Rainer's mostly black outfit with like red accents. Most people would probably assume he's a rogue by aesthetic, which was, I don't know, kind of an oopsie, but I don't know. I wanted a good boy, but I also like can't completely let go of the Shadow the Hedgehog edgelord in me. So that somewhat had to be portrayed. So thank you. I got approval.
I will say, speaking to fan artists, I have been so inspired by fan art for my characters in the past. So part of me wanting to be cagey about it is I want to see what people come up with. And so if people are like, ooh, this would look cool, I want to see it. So that's why I'm not committing colors yet, because I actually have 4 different fabrics at my house, and I haven't decided on which one will be her tunic. So I want to see how it looks.
Yeah, I have one thing that I'm still wishy-washy on. Setsuna has scholars' raiments, like scholars' robes, and I want them to look fancy, but I'm so brain dead in character designing right now that I'm like, I don't know, I'll just figure it out. So if anyone has like pretty scholar robes ideas, please throw them at me, because I need them to look fancy. Thank you.
I'm easy. Shaved head, black cap.
Thank you very much.
Over on the other microphone.
Hi, my name is Jake. My group is a rotating DM, so I get to play and DM at the same time. It's great. My question is going to be for the whole panel. If you could talk to the person who turned you on to D&D, besides thank you, what would you say? That's what I like. Cricket.
I turned myself on to D&D.
You should tell your origin story, because it's good.
One.
Like how you
The
became
one where I crash landed on this planet? Or the one after?
the D&D origin story, how you became lead story designer of Dungeons.
Oh, that's a
and
long
Dragons.
story. We've only got...
Well, I like the you showed up on the front doorstep and you were like, I'm going to write D&D thing. I don't know. That's what it sounded like to me.
Well, so I decided when I was 13 that I was going to go work on D&D. I was playing basketball out in my neighbor David's driveway, and we were just joking about what we were going to do, and he didn't have any idea, but I knew exactly what I was going to do. And then for the next 5 years, I was laser focused on that goal. Just a small Canadian boy looking to get a job in the United States working on role-playing games. But then I did the very underhanded thing of when I got out of I did the freelancer thing. I wrote, submitted articles, got rejected, wrote, submitted articles, got rejected, accepted, yay! Finally figured out what they like. And then kept getting better and better and better and better until such time as I was prolific enough that I could actually go down to the TSR offices on my summers off and wait outside until they let me in, and then just help them basically doing grunt work. So, which was for like a 17 to 23-year-old person, that's pretty driven. That surprises me, that I could be that ambitious and that lucky. And so when a job posting opening came up, they said, we want him.
Yay.
So that's what you would say to yourself, who got you into D&D.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think I'm lucky enough to still know the people that got me into D&D. They were in college with me, and I'm still pretty close to it was a fencing team that I was on briefly. And now they kind of laugh, because we're still really good friends, and they're like, now D&D's your job. And remember that time we just played a campaign together in college? And I was like, yeah, that was weird, man. So
now D&D's your job never gets old.
right? It's weird. It's like they know, they're still on Twitter. We're Twitter friends, so they see oh, I'm here at PAX, and they're like, remember when we played D&D at the fencing house? And I'm like, it's so funny. That was a horrible laugh. I'm so sorry.
Do you have one?
I don't really have one.
I still play with my first D&D group.
Really?
Yes. In fact, we used to play Tuesday nights starting in 2014. That's when I started playing D&D. I'm still kind of young, actually. 2013, sometime in that range. And we played online. I didn't even roll a physical die for the first 2 years of playing D&D. And we still play on Tuesday nights. We had to move our time to be after Dice Camera Action, but I will go straight from playing with Chris to playing with that group because I just don't want to give up playing with them, and that's the only night they can play.
What would you say to them?
Well, what did I say to them on Discord like the hour before? I'm in a panel right now, but I'll give you that character description when I'm done. But we do really like to kind of revel in the fact that we've been playing together so long and we've done so many different kinds of things, and all of it is recorded. So if you go back and you watch Miss Clicks, which is where we started, Miss Clicks D&D Pirate Edition, you can actually watch my first D&D session ever, and that's really cool. And it's really cool to have people that are like, we don't really do any of the same things we used to do. We don't really stream other than we don't want to give up playing together because that's how we connect. So I would say to them, that's awesome, and sorry my character description's late.
I think for me, I would, because like the only thing that does come to mind is, thank you, but I was thinking about it, and I think I would just like to remind them that even though, kind of like you just said, a lot of things in life change, but just like, isn't it good that D&D doesn't?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's what I would just remind them, and still say thank you, even though you told me not to.
All right, we got 10 minutes left. We can power through.
Thank you. I really appreciate you all.
Right. Good afternoon. My name is Morgan. It's a pleasure to meet y'all. I have a fast question and then one that may take longer depending on the answer y'all have. First question is, which one of y'all is the Aquarius?
Me. Cusp.
Me too.
Nice.
Second question that I was a little curious about is, when it comes to character ideas and possibly even full-on characters, did you go through multiple ones, and could we hear about a little bit of them, the ones that came before your current characters?
But for this campaign specifically, or just in life?
Yes.
Did any of us have different characters before these?
Nope.
Nope.
No, I fell in love with Vale as soon as he was sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was fast. Thanks.
Well, that was an easy one.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you for the easy question.
All right. First one, piggybacking off of that one, Cancer. Yes. All right. Second one.
Cancer, yes. It was just said at this time.
Out of context. First one, Chris. Is Spurt ever going to show up, or did that fire giant stomp him so bad he died in every existence ever?
Squashed in multiple times.
I don't envision Spurt showing up in a future timeline, maybe in a past timeline.
Nice. All right.
But one of his brothers was already dead, but maybe his other brother Turd, who's a real shit, will.
And then for Mika, so I'm guessing with the description of your god, it's not the happy dream time with Samuel and Rainey.
No, it's the
But
complete opposite.
will the personality be like your character in Destiny and Doom with Jack?
Oh my
Crichton?
God, I forgot about Destiny and Doom.
Uh-huh.
Not quite, because Freya was very militant and kind of like the mom. Picture more like late season Raven from Teen Titans, where she is accepting to friends and not so standoffish, but also kind of to herself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
So you've all mentioned how Chris has taken notes on you. Has there ever been a point where you guys...
Oh, I've taken notes on all of you.
But where he said something, you're like, oh, Perkins, I'm holding that one.
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, what jumps to mind first is we like to surprise. We have a phrase, surprise and delight Chris Perkins. And so whenever we notice an opportunity of oh, he seemed delighted by that or surprised by that, if we can manage to surprise him while he's busy surprising us. So I can't think of any specific time where I held onto a story element, but there have been a lot of times I'm
taking a picture. It's fine. I'm not.
For example, the time where we wrote a song, and so we'll ask him to hold space for us to do things that he doesn't know in the campaign, and that's really fun.
And one real quick one. Chris, I know you're probably not going to be able to answer this, but Spelljammer was my favorite campaign ever. Are we ever going to see published stuff on it?
Technically, you already have.
Besides the actual Spelljammer in the one book?
Yeah, we put a Spelljammer helm and a Spelljammer vessel in one of our adventure products. there's at least one other encounter with Spelljammer coming your way. And I'm not talking about the Baldur's Gate 3.
Awesome.
And we'll see where it goes. We have no extensive Spelljammer plans, but we have a lot of Spelljammer fans.
Awesome.
It
Thank you.
rhymed.
So, there comes a time in a lot of campaigns nowadays where the DM and the player will get together and they'll say, we have a really good dynamic, we should consider streaming our game. As players and DMs, how do you modify kind of like the standard traditional way you would be playing D&D for yourself versus what changes do you have to take to make it into more of spectator-oriented entertainment?
I have so much to say about that. I could give a whole panel about that. But I'm sure Chris has a
One or
lot.
two fast notes.
Think about the audience in every piece of your play. Remember that it changes the focus of your game to are you having fun to is the audience having fun, and make sure you want to do that. And make sure that your character is someone that fits that role in that they will do things that are entertaining for everyone and not just you.
Also, to piggyback off of that, make sure that you're not only performing for them, because my favorite part of playing any stream D&D game is playing D&D with my friends. So I don't want it to just only become a job, because I guess, at least personally for me, once the game starts, the cameras go away, and I'm just playing D&D with my friends.
Very much the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess, like, be comfortable with the idea of, like, chat becomes another person that you invited to your game with your friends. So as long as you're cool with that other person being there, then that's
Yeah.
great.
And to piggyback Nolly Trey flip off of that, it's very easy to go too far into accommodating for it being a show, and it kind of loses, I'm playing D&D as a character, and more, I am just being an entertainer, and that can kind of give people a weird impression of what D&D is really about, because it's more about the game and less about the audience. That coming from the guy who, played a character that talked directly to audience. So, what do I know?
I think this may be our last question.
Well, we got two more people on.
Oh.
Let's just try to.
Speed
These will be
run.
our last two people. We'll power through it. Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
So, how do you guys kind of go from picking an option that you want more so than your character? So, like, not metagaming, I guess, as a new player.
I think for me, because I've had a couple instances with that in a home game I was in, it's hard because you do put yourself into your character a lot, at least I do. I think it's very common. But when you're faced with a decision that is, you're like, no. So for me, Will would have really wants to do this, but I don't think he should do that. That's not good, or that's not right for him, or whatever. Or like, I think that's not right for him, but then I think about Will, and I say, no, that is what Will. And Will almost becomes like another ghost friend that's floating next to you, and you want to see what happens to Will, separate from yourself. And I find it's an area where you can grow your, like, now the ghost goes back inside of you. This is getting really weird, but he goes back inside of you, and you're like, wow, now how does that change me afterwards? D&D almost, for me, sometimes is like, what can I learn about myself through this character that I'm trying to stick to? And I think that's my answer, and that's the statement.
Yeah. I think as long as it doesn't derail the campaign, like if it's like an erratic choice that would just make everything awful for everyone else, then like don't do that. But other than that, just it takes practice.
Yeah, and if your character's that much different from you as a person, then just familiarity with their thoughts and ideals is like recognizing when something comes in where you versus the characters would make two different choices, is recognizing when that happens, try not to let it phase you, and then just stay the route of your character, because it's more about them developing and learning from them rather than being like, well, I already know, in case like you meet a character who you're pretty sure what their name is, and all of a sudden they introduce themselves as something different, and you just got to be like, nice to meet you, liar.
Wow. Okay, really not subtle call out there.
I think a summary is commit more to the story than to your character.
As a DM, I'm kinder to characters who are committed, or players who are committed to their characters, than I am to players who are sort of meta their way through the game. Last question.
So this is mostly for Chris, but how do you decide, like, for an NPC, are they important or are they more minor? And for the important ones, like, how do you start developing, like, what do they think? Like, what are their flaws, bonds, ideals, things like that?
I try not to get attached to any characters, because once you place them in front of a party, you don't know what their fate is. It's organic. It happens in the moment. If a character seems to resonate or gain some level of importance or significance, either in the story I've set up or because the players have magnetized to that character, then that character will get more of my attention. And then basically I'll go on a long walk with Milo out in the woods and figure all the ins and outs of this character, but I don't get too attached to them, even the ones I love, because they'll get Warrington munted and sorry, that's an inside reference. They'll get buried long before I'm able to take them to a fruitful conclusion. They're there to basically bounce off of these characters, and I will only give them as much attention as they deserve in that regard.
Okay, thank you.
We're at time, but real quick, like I said, at least us four will be at the Cantrip booth right now. We have special PAX exclusive dice vaults if you want to check those out, and we will also sign, take pictures, whatever you'd like, and we would love to see you there. Chris, anything in closing?
Bye.
Tomorrow, 3 p.m., right?
Live game tomorrow, 3 p.m.